Hello, I'm Laura Furiosi, divorced mother of 3, and I'm here with my mother, Lynette Galvin, with 35 years' experience in family law. You're listening to the Divorce Course podcast. Through our candid discussions, we hope to help you through your divorce or de facto separation. We will be answering the most commonly asked questions and covering the stages and steps that you will face on your way to freedom. Divorce can cause sleepless nights, and that is a no-brainer. So today we have got a wonderful special guest for you and a gift for you. This amazing lady, Shea Morrison. She is the co-founder of the successful Australian-based company, The Goodnight Co., which is driven by one mission: to help as many people as possible create better days through better sleep. Shea is also a corporate workshop facilitator who provides tailor-made wellness workshops to businesses all over Australia. And just listening to Shea's voice and the way she talks and the information she gives you is going to make you feel better and be able to have a little bit of a better sleep. So this is our gift to you guys. And I can't wait to talk to Shea and get her to share some of her goodness so that we can all get better sleep. And also, welcome, Mum.
Thank you, Laura. Hello to see you. Lovely to see you. Hi, Shea.
How are girls? You? Good. How are you?
I'm really excited for today.
Oh, I know. I can't
tell us.
Can't wait.
Now, normally all our podcasts, Shea, are quite legal, practical, step-by-step stuff with lawyers and financial planners and the like. But when I met you recently, I was blown away with just like 3 things you told me at a cafe and how much it has helped me sleep. And I remember going through divorce, and I remember the sleepless nights and thinking, oh, well, there's nothing I can really do about it. But it impaired my function moving forwards through my mediation and court. And if I'd known what you had told me the other day, maybe I would have had some better times and an easier time. So I would love for you to first tell us a little bit about yourself, and then let's get into some nitty-gritty to help our listeners.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. And you know, it's such an interesting topic because sleep is often overlooked, and we take for granted a lot of the time that sleep is the third pillar of health, and it sits right alongside diet and exercise. And if you think about a time when, and this is generally the time coming into a new year where we want to set New Year's resolutions and make some changes physically, emotionally, whatever that might be, often we'll set off on a path of the goal might be to run a marathon or get fitter or whatever that might be. Then we tend to tell everyone around us about it. We go out and sign up to a gym or a personal trainer, you know, start a regime of some sort and get started. And it's no different for sleep, because being the third pillar of health, I would argue that it's probably should be the first and the most important, because once you can get your sleep sorted, then everything else seems to fall into place. Because as you would know, you know, when you don't get a good night's sleep, let alone multiple nights of bad sleep, it's really hard to make good decisions. And you feel irritable, you might feel really moody, feel really fatigued, make some poor decisions around all sorts of things, whether that's what you eat, not exercising. Life just feels like it's coming in like a blanket over the top of you. And for a lot of people, they hear this and then it maybe makes them feel more stressed, which is not the aim, because what we want to do is break that down and provide some really simple tools that you can start to put into practice to prioritize sleep and to get better sleep. Because if you were to apply that notion of what I just talked about in terms of telling everybody around you, prioritizing sleep, creating a routine and doing the same things that you might do in a fitness style, then you're halfway there to getting a good night's sleep.
And I tell you what, getting a good night's sleep is a lot easier to do than motivation-wise than it is to go to the gym.
Absolutely.
And if you want to, anyone who's got children can remember those first few weeks home with the baby, what sleep deprivation can mean to a person. So I heard a good expression. Someone calls it sleep hygiene.
Yes.
And to me, that elevated the issue of sleep right up there with brushing your teeth every day.
Absolutely. And to the point, Lynn, around, you know, sleep deprivation and that feeling when you're a new mum, if you have more than 18 hours, so if you've had a stretch of time for more than 18 hours where you haven't slept, it is the equivalent of having a 0.05 blood alcohol reading. So it actually is really serious. So, you know, I think that we do need to take it seriously. And the first step in getting good sleep is prioritizing it. So understanding that this is something that you want to do and making the steps forward from there.
Tell you what, that key takeaway is having the equivalent of a blood alcohol
reading.
You do not want to go to your court trial. You do not want to go to your mediation. You don't want to even go and have a meeting with your lawyer with something the equivalent of an alcohol read in your blood.
Let alone drive your car to get there and getting one of those tricky parks.
Yeah. So I can see how really important this is. So Shea, I know it's easy for people to say, yeah, we'll get some sleep. And for those who don't have major drama in their life, their world hasn't been turned upside down, prioritizing sleep and getting a good night's sleep might be easier. But I do know a lot of people who say to me, I was up at 2:00 and I couldn't stop thinking about the trial, or I was up at 2:00 and I couldn't stop thinking about my ex or what's going to happen tomorrow. What can our listeners do if they're stuck in that trap of waking up in the middle of the night and worrying?
Well, we categorize this into 3 different areas. We've had the Good Night Code for 10 years, and my background is strangely in radio advertising, but I always have had a really strong interest in wellness. When I was younger at uni, I also studied to become a massage therapist, and I'm a marriage celebrant and I'm a meditation teacher. So I have lots of different modalities, and understanding the physiology of the body was really important for me. So when it came to understanding sleep, I'm just so interested in it. And there's just more and more research coming out as we progress through. So interestingly, sleep wasn't on the map or the radar probably up until at least 5 or 6 years ago. And there were still a lot of people walking around, many major CEOs of the world, wearing sleep as 3 hours sleep was a badge of honor, and saying, I push through and I only get 3 hours of sleep. We know now through the research that if you are not getting regular 7 to 9 hours sleep, so at least a minimum of 6, it's got some major long-term health implications. So when it comes to breaking this down, to answer your question, Laura, we break it down into 3 areas, which is people that are struggling to fall asleep, that might wake up and struggle to get back to sleep, and then people who just wake up and feel really unrefreshed in the morning and probably sometimes like they've been hit by a freight train. And for some people, they oscillate between all 3 of these areas. And if you do, it's completely normal. It's something that we are striving for, but it's also this fine balance of not being too overwhelmed, because sometimes we can create more anxiety by stressing about the amount of sleep we get rather than just letting that emotion float through. So if we go and address those 3 different areas, if you're having trouble falling asleep, then often it's put into the category that we just haven't gone through the relaxation process. So the key thing to falling asleep is that if our body is not deeply relaxed, it's going to be really hard for us to get to sleep and stay asleep. So if you can think back to a time where you felt deeply relaxed, whether that be when you go on holiday, so a couple of days into a holiday, when you get a facial or a massage, or anything sitting in nature, one of those, the feeling of that really deep relaxed state, that's actually what we're aiming for every night. And once we start to work, it's like retraining a muscle. When we start to retrain ourselves into that space, we can achieve this. And so, but we need to tap into that feeling of what does it feel like for me? Because when it comes to all of us, we are completely individual. So all of us have a different fingerprint. This is how I like to think about it. No one's fingerprint is the same. So we are all genetically made up different. So what is happening for you and what is happening for me could be completely different. So really understanding yourself, tuning into your body. We often neglect the fact that our bodies are amazing. They do this amazing job for us 24 hours a day. And when we're sleeping, there is so much going on. It's not like the body's actually shutting down, because behind the scenes, all of this amazing work's being done to help recover and heal and remove the toxins and do the work that's the repair work that needs, so that when we wake up in the morning, we're ready to go for the next day. So we need to understand that first as well, and go easy on our bodies and go easy on ourselves, because once we can tap into that, we feel a bit more compassionate.
Yeah, I guess I think I've realised, like what you've just said there, and a lot of our listeners are parents. We know if you put your child to bed and just go, it's bedtime, and just put them in bed, and they're not going to go to sleep. It took me a very long time to figure out, turn the lights down low, read a story, and have a little routine so the children know, sleep is coming soon, and relaxing them so that when I did put them to sleep, they would go to sleep. Otherwise, they don't. And if you don't do that routine, they wouldn't, and it would be like a jack in the box out of bed every day. So I guess I never really thought about it. We should be trying to do that for ourselves as well. And each of my children had a different routine because each of them were different. And so some sleep routines would work for some, and I've just had a massive big wow moment.
And it's tapping into that, like you said, Laura, and just working that out.
And I don't think it stops when it's a baby. We talk a lot about babies sleeping, but, as they grow into children, I think it's the same sort of thing. And as we grow, I think a routine is getting your mind ready to go to sleep.
So if our listeners today don't have a routine yet, Shea, can you give us like a cheat? What do you do before you get to bed to wind down?
Well, I think for this area that we're talking about, which is the trouble falling asleep, is the routine. So having that routine, establishing it, and being consistent. So the thing about the routine is you can't try it once and say it doesn't work. It's got to be a repetitive behavior in order for it to stick and for the body to respond. So I like to keep it simple. So if you're starting off and you don't have a routine, choose 3 things, keep it really simple, and it might just take 5 minutes. So having a warm shower. So having a warm shower helps our body temperature. So when we go into that warm shower and then we step out, it helps the body temperature to drop, which sends a signal to the brain that it's time to get ready for bed. It might be that you do your skincare routine. So you might do a beautiful skincare routine that is massaging the face, which is so close to the brain, which also helps that lymphatic drainage happen as well. So it's helping the brain get ready to do its detoxification process. And then doing some simple things like really avoiding screens and devices is key. The golden rule is 2 hours before bed. Now, for most people, this is not realistic in our day and age, but if you could aim for 30 minutes, then that would be amazing. Replacing the scroll perhaps with listening to a guided meditation, doing some box breathing, or reading a real book, getting one of those old school book lamps that attach to the book and using that. Because what I'd love to talk to you about in a minute, Laura, is light and how light impacts sleep.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's talk about that then as well, because that's important.
It is. It is.
Yes. And so before we do that stop the scroll, I think that ties in with what Mum and I always say to our listeners of setting those boundaries with, if you've got an ex who's texting you or sending you messages, if you're reading your emails from them, or you read a document from a lawyer or something just before you go to sleep, you've got no boundaries. So we always say set up those boundaries. 9 to 5 is when you read their messages, and 9 to 5 is when you read lawyer letters.
And the thing is that as mums, I know, and as working people, the time of the day that belongs to you is after the kids are in bed or after dinner's done. And so that might be 7 or 8 o'clock until you go to bed. So that's when you can scroll guilt-free, sort of. So it's a bad idea. Maybe you need to scroll at lunchtime.
Yes. Yes. So what about the light, Shea? What should we be doing with light?
Well, so this also sort of dovetails into if you're waking up and you're struggling to get back to sleep as well, because I think often what's happening at this point is that people are then getting on their phone as well. So they've potentially been on their phones before they go to bed. They've also been watching TVs, lots of light. So light is the key when it comes to sleep. We have our sleep hormone melatonin. Lots of people would have heard of melatonin. So melatonin lives up here in the pineal gland, up in our brain. And what we want to happen in an ideal world is that in the morning, so morning is the key when it comes to getting good sleep, surprisingly. So in the morning, we want to get the natural light. We want to get natural sunlight. So a hit of that natural sunlight within an hour or so of waking. so that helps to stop melatonin. So it stops the release of melatonin so that we get that rush of adrenaline and some cortisol so that we can get moving for the day. So this is how our natural rhythm works in a 24-hour cycle. Then when it comes to the afternoon, so the evening time, around sort of that 7 p.m., between 7 and 9, this is when we want to start being in a more relaxed, lower light environment, because we want melatonin to release that allows us to feel sleepy. So we are living in these really fast-paced environments where light is everywhere. And I think if you look around, I don't know if anyone's done a renovation recently, or if you go and stay at a hotel, there is light everywhere. Strip LED lighting, LED lights around our, where your light switches.
The bathroom mirrors now.
The bathroom mirrors, all of it, the fairy lights, all of our cars have got lights that light up that when you open the door, and if you start to take notice, it's incredible. And there's a lot of talk about blue light, but it's actually just light. It's the spectrum of light.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, if you think about it, Lynn, you think back to, I remember as a child in the, late 70s, early 80s, where we used to have lots of lamps. So it was a lot more of a softer light. It was more of a yellow light, not the white light that we've got. Do you remember that? Would you think that was fair?
Yes.
Yeah, I still have lamps, and it's true. And with the shade on them as well, lamp shades, it wasn't like boring into your eyeballs. I suffer from migraines, and so light is a bit of a trigger for me. So
light is the enemy for all of us.
Yes, those of us with
So my children call me a vampire because we eat in the dark, basically, and don't let anyone turn lights on. So maybe in a way that's a positive.
It is a positive.
And for our listeners who may be struggling with, a single income at the moment, turning the lights off is a great way to save electricity and save money.
I think, didn't they say they used to call mood lighting?
Yeah.
Where you could just have a few lamps on.
Which is what it is. Yeah. And so we want to get to that state in the evening. So light is going to impact us because it's going to not allow us to feel tired because melatonin is not being released. And then if we're waking up in the middle of the night, it's often because probably we've had a lot of light exposure, so the body hasn't had time to relax and do the processes. And then if we're waking up and going back onto our phones, then we're confusing the body as to whether it's night or day, or is it time to get up? Am I going to turn adrenaline on now? Like, what's actually happening? So we want to avoid that as well.
So no reaching for the phone in the middle of the night.
Well, Shea, some phones, I think, mine does, you can change it to a night mode when you're looking at it. Is that a bit of a trick, or does it work?
It's a benefit. It's going to help. But I still suggest absolutely putting a golden rule in place that you are never reaching for your phone. And to be fair, your phone actually shouldn't be in your bedroom.
Yes, except those of us with families and kids who may not be at your house this week or who are getting on a bit and might need medical help. I think people do put phones next to their bed, but we can put it in a box.
If you've got a real massive issue with sleep, I think maybe you could come up with a way to put it somewhere, even in the cupboard.
In the cupboard or in your room, so just outside your door, so you can still hear someone, but out of reach, so that when you wake up, you're not reaching for your phone. It's a reflex.
So I can see without a doubt, and not only just the effects of the phone on your sleep from light, but I think it is a really important thing when you're going through separation and divorce, scrolling on Insta or TikTok, and everybody is putting their best foot forward on social media. Look how great my life is, look how happy we are, look at the family system. And that can be really harmful when you're going through a divorce, I think, for some of our listeners, because they're not doing that. They're going through hell. They're moving house. They're dealing with drama. And so not only is your phone scrolling at night hurting your sleep ability, it's also hurting your mental health in a way. So we do try and say, and if you are listening and you're like, I can't put my phone away, you could maybe think about how important the next couple of weeks or months and decision making that's going to affect your life, and maybe weigh it up. And like Shea was saying at the beginning, we all make these big goals and plans about, I'm going to lose 10 kilos, I'm going to go to the gym every day. And this might actually help you so much better than just those little going to the gyms.
And I was really interested, Laura and Shea, to hear you say you can't just do it once. So if, say you've got court tomorrow or a mediation, you can't go, you know what, I'm going to do the right thing here. I'm going to I have my routine and I'll put my phone away and then I'll sleep amazingly well and be bright tomorrow morning. That won't work, particularly if you've got something heavy going on the next day. Shay, you do have to keep it going, don't you? And prepare
in the lead up.
Get it started and then it will come naturally. But you're not going to be able to go to sleep just on one night that if for a big event, I wouldn't have thought.
Okay. No. It's almost cumulative is what we're aiming for.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that sounds like some definite goals people can be setting for 2024. So what else can people do, Shea, if they wake up in the middle of the night and they don't reach for their phone and they're just lying there and all of the thoughts are running through their head? You're invited to our free webinar. Whether you're stuck at the beginning of deciding to divorce or you're struggling to find your way through the legal jargon and fear of the unknown of the legal process, we are here to empower you to take control. Join us to learn what steps you can take, followed by a live Q&A where you get Lynn, my amazing mum and family law accredited specialist, to answer your questions. All you have to do is go to www.thedivorcecourse.com.au and click on Reserve My Seat. We'll see you there. Hurry, spaces are limited, so don't miss out. Register today. So what else can people do, Shea, if they wake up in the middle of the night and they don't reach for their phone and they're just lying there and all of the thoughts are running through their head?
Yeah. So often we get I hear people say I woke up because I was really stressed. Now, often we're not waking up because we're really stressed. Mostly we're waking up because something has triggered that. So there might be a noise, a sound, a disruption, a partner, there might be a child or somebody in the bed or something's happened and then we wake up. So something has triggered us to wake up. It might be that we're taking the wrong medication and our body's uncomfortable or we're in a bit of pain or we ate dinner too late or, alcohol. We had a couple of glasses of wine and the liver's screaming out to us, you've just, laid all this extra detoxification process on me. So there's normally something that triggers it. Then when we wake up, the minute we wake up, all of those thoughts come flooding in, the stress and the anxiety. So then we start to ruminate over all of the things that have happened or they said this and, whatever that might be. And so what we want to do is as I mentioned before, our bodies are amazing and really smart. And so our body starts to associate our bed as the place where we can't sleep and that we wake up and we don't go back to sleep. So we want to trick our body into reprogram it almost by not lying in bed. We want to get out of our bed, go and find a quiet, dark spot. So it might be you might have a chair in the corner of your room, or it might be your lounge room, somewhere where it's quiet and dark, and then sit in that spot for probably at least 20 to 30 minutes because we want to get on what we call our next sleep train. So we go through these cycles as we're sleeping. So we want to catch the next sleep train. So we want to sit. We could maybe read a book, as I said, with a low light, listen to a guided meditation, do some breathing exercises, or just sit with our eyes closed and then take ourselves back to bed and try going back to sleep. So this is the process because without breaking that cycle, it's going to be very hard to get back to sleep.
Wow. So lying there, letting all your thoughts run through your head is not going to help you get back to sleep. And even if you don't have your phone. So you go find somewhere to sit and just be quiet. And I know you told me that when we met at a cafe the other day, and I have done that. And I think we met, what was that? 2 months ago, a month ago.
Yeah.
And it's worked.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not lying there in the middle of the night just thinking about a million things. I am now just not waking up. And if I do, I just get up and go back to bed. And it is a lot easier.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I love that tip. I absolutely love that tip.
Yeah.
So is there anything else? So for our listeners, they're stressed out, they've got all this going on. They're big life events, Shea. And I know you've been a marriage celebrant, so you've seen the other side. It's a big life event to get married. It's also a big life event to get divorced. And it is a huge moment in everyone who's listening's life, whether it's separation, de facto, divorce. Is it unreasonable? Is it too high of an expectation to think our listeners can get sleep in these times?
I think that if you coming back to that prioritizing it and really understanding how powerful it can be for you, I think that you can do it. It's almost like sleep training. You really need to train yourself to get it. So a lot of people just expect that we sleep naturally and no one teaches us how to sleep. It's just like a given, but we do need to train ourselves. And as I said, each of us are going to have a different way that we respond to it, depending on the way in which our bodies work and the way that we're made up. And knowing that stress and anxiety is the number one reason why people are not sleeping, it's then finding some practices to really help regulate your nervous system and cope with the stress and anxiety. I think that that's also the first step is prioritizing, understanding how stressed and anxious are you and where is your support team? You guys are there as part of a support team, but where's the rest of that support team? And making a plan, actually using potentially a note paper, a note paper and pen and sitting down and going, okay, well, how am I going to plan for this? Like you would be planning, to go to court or to go and speak to your lawyer or whatever it might be, and putting some boundaries in place. So we also know because we want to make sure that we're cycling through the different stages of sleep. As I mentioned before, 7 to 9 hours is what an adult needs to sleep. Matthew Walker, who wrote, he's one of the leading neuroscientists. I think his book was Why We Can't Sleep. He's got a few different books. He has a brilliant TED Talk. So if you want to get some more information, I would definitely consider Matthew Walker's TED Talk. I'd also look at Andrew Huberman. But if we look at Matthew Walker, he's pretty brutal in his commentary. And he says categorically that if we're getting less than 5 hours sleep a night on a regular basis, we simply will not live a long life. That's harsh, but it's the reality. So this is why I'm so serious about it and making this plan and prioritizing it, because not only is it going to help you to lead a long life, healthy life, but it's going to help you in this moment. Like this could be the key to having this divorce go the way that you want it to go by being in control of how you're sleeping, which sets you up for success.
Wow.
And once you're through it, Shea, it's a benefit to you for the rest of your life. You've learned how to sleep through this. You'll sleep through anything.
And it's free. You don't have to go buy a pill. You don't have to go and, join a gym. It's free.
You don't need special clothes. You don't need, it's self-care. It's a really good level of self-care.
One of the things that a lot of our listeners are dealing with is there's two things. One of them is sleeping in a bed now without their partner.
Yes.
Whether they're excited about that or sad. And that obviously does change just the whole way. I remember I always slept on the left side of the bed and had a king bed, like it was huge. And then someone said to me once, why aren't you sleeping in the middle? And I was like, oh. So I moved into the middle and I thought that was the best thing ever. But it is a different way of sleeping with there's no one in the bed with you. And also for those children that are now got two beds in two homes and they're going from one place to the other, they're also, I think, having trouble with sleep. So are there any tips that you can give to our listeners who are dealing with this change of their everyday sleep?
That's a really good question. And I think that one of the keys here is that if we go back into cave days or right back into history, when we were living in a cave, for example, we were in a situation where we were probably in half of our brain. So when we go to a hotel or when we go on holidays or whatever it might be, the first night, it's actually a real thing called first night effect, which means that we're in a new environment, so we're on high alert. So half of our brain is in a more conscious state, and this is why we often have a bad night's sleep in a new environment. So it's real. And so this is kind of what you're relating to, although when children are moving in between their houses, it's not a new environment. That becomes the normal. But our body is still on alert. And the key here is that we need to feel safe. So feeling safe within ourselves and understanding that our body needs to feel safe, that's going to really help in this situation. Because as you said, Laura, like having having, shared a bed with somebody for years or for whatever period of time, and then being alone. And like a child, if we go back to looking at children, they really want you to stay there and cuddle them for hours. They don't want you to leave because that's the safety piece. And so we need to instill in ourselves and for our children, and by simply repeating some mantras and going through some different things, I am safe. So I get my children to do this. I just get them to put their hand on their heart and just take a breath and say, I am safe.
Oh,
I am safe. And they can repeat that a few times. And that allows it, again, our bodies are really smart and they're like, okay, she's telling me that it's safe. I'm safe. So we're allowing that to happen. And I think that is a really simple step in itself. Or creating a little process for yourself or for your children, just doing the little checking that all the doors are locked and you've done that process. That could be part of your routine. And then just sitting and saying, I am safe. So I think that is a key to helping what you're talking about,
yeah,
Laura.
That's powerful. That's powerful,
isn't it? Yeah.
And especially if anybody has gone through some really tricky, unsafe situations.
Yes.
And of course, if you do feel like you need to talk to someone because it's triggered you, call 1-800-RESPECT or Lifeline, or if you're unsafe, always call 000. But I think telling yourself that you're safe, holding hand on heart, getting children who maybe have been through situations as well to tell themselves they're safe, even though to me, before I got into mantras, I was like, that's crazy. That's talking to yourself. But it does work. Like it has a power. Words have power.
Well, especially I think words combined with physical movement, and especially if you say the words out loud, I think it engages all of your senses and makes it more real.
Absolutely. Movement through the body. So shifting, because often what's happening is that we all have a lot of trauma. And all of us have varying degrees of trauma, whether that's generational trauma, whether that's current trauma, whatever it might be. And the trauma often gets stuck somewhere in our body. So we need to move that and movement, as you're saying, Lynn, moving that through. And so it might even be that you do a little shake off exercise, like just a quick little shake off, or I love doing lymphatic. So you have a dry skin brush and I do a little lymphatic skin brushing. I do a little face lymphatic thing as well, because we're moving the energy and we're moving the blood flow through our system, which helps shake any of that feeling that might be stuck there.
Wow.
And where would our listeners find an example of what little tappings to do and things?
They can have a look on my Instagram, so Shea Morrison _, and I've got a little process, or I've got a video that I've done that I can send to somebody, and that takes you could do that in under a minute.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, so what we'll do is we'll put the link to your Instagram, because I've seen your Instagram and your videos are great. There's fantastic tips for our listeners, and we might send everybody the details for that video as well, and the TED Talk. We're wrapping it up, Shea. I wanted to say thank you for everything that you've shared today, because it's so hard to get out of your own head and to look objectively at what you're doing in your day-to-day, particularly when you're on autopilot. But these tips that you've given the listeners today, they're things that are free that you can do, and those changes, if you listening today commit to at least doing one of those changes, it could have a huge effect, by the sounds of it, to your life. And Mum, when it comes to clients and court and lawyer stuff, can you tell the ones that are having trouble sleeping?
Yes, my dears. It's better if you can try to have a sleep the night before. So start this routine, I think, a week or two out.
Start it now.
Because there are times you may need to call on some deep-seated quiet to enable you to answer a question, consider a proposal, whether or not you're in the witness box at the time. I have been known to turn the light off in the interview room so my client can do a quick breathing meditation to get them out of the funk. Because if you're not rested and essentially going the equivalent of going to court drunk, you're making decisions for your life. And so, it's better for the lawyers that you are calm and ready to roll. I love the way these things can go on into your life for the rest of your life, even when, and I hope this for all our people, everything's wonderful again.
Yeah. And passing on that good sleep hygiene, sleep behaviours to your kids is something good that can come out of this horrible moment. So, Shea, is there any other way that people can work with you?
Yes. So as you mentioned earlier, I do run corporate sleep workshops, but I do one-on-one coaching and group coaching as well. So all of that information is on my Instagram. You can find it there. And our website is thegoodnightco.com.au. So there is a huge amount of resource, but I'm really happy. I'm so genuine about wanting to help people to get better sleep, because I know how much it helps me every day, and I live and breathe it, and I can help. I would love to talk to anyone. So if anyone has any questions, just reach out to me. I'm so happy to help and just to have a chat and see where you're at.
That's awesome. Well, we'll give you Instagram. We'll put the link in, and we absolutely loved talking to you, Shea. You are so amazing, and you care deeply about helping people. We care deeply about helping people.
Yes.
So it's a win-win.
I think that's why we do.
You also have a podcast, don't you, Shea?
I do. Sleep by Shea.
Sleep by Shea. And Mum and I were on your podcast
the
other day.
Exciting.
If you ladies listening today want to go and listen to that episode too, we'll let you know when that comes out. Or gentlemen.
Yes.
Ladies or gentlemen.
I think just one thing, Laura, just to wrap up in summary, is that if there are 3 key things for somebody who's listened today and thought, okay, I need to get serious about this, the first step is just prioritizing, acknowledging and prioritizing it. The second step is making a simple routine, and that's just a 3-step process, committing to that every night. And then in the morning, getting up, getting that hit of sunshine and getting that circadian rhythm set for the day that is going to not only increase your endorphins, so make you feel happier even in that really stressful time, but it's going to help your sleep that night. And if you can just do those 3 things to get started, then you're really on your way to success.
Wonderful.
That's lovely.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Shea. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you as always, Mum, as well. If you found this podcast helpful, we'd love if you could rate, review and subscribe. By doing so, you are spreading the word to help someone else just like you. Lynn would like to remind you that this podcast is general advice only, and you should always get legal advice in relation to your particular situation. And remember that the Australian laws may have changed since recording